Part 1. The Quiet One in the Tent. The desert wind screamed across the base, kicking up sandstorms that bit at every inch of exposed skin. It was the kind of wind that whispered bad omens, the kind old soldiers claimed always blew before the worst of it. At Camp Vega, stationed just south of the Alcaran mountain range, everyone was holding their breath, because even if the maps called it a secure zone, the silence here felt like a trap waiting to spring. Inside the makeshift hospital tent, the air was thick with antiseptic, sweat, and something else unspoken, an exhaustion so deep it didn't show on faces anymore. It lived in bones. Elena Carter stood at the steel sink, scrubbing her hands for the 6th time that day. Blood had gotten under her nails again. No matter how long she scrubbed, it never really left. Her badge read Carter E. Her role, trauma nurse. Her presence, nearly invisible. And yet, over the last 3 months, every surgeon on base knew that when things fell apart, you wanted Carter at your side. She moved like a shadow through chaos. No wasted words. No dramatics. Just precision, grace, and a kind of calm that unnerved even the most hardened medics. Some said she'd worked trauma in Baltimore before enlisting. Others whispered that something terrible had happened back home and that war was her way of disappearing. No one asked her directly, because when you looked into her eyes you saw that whatever had burned there had burned hot and deep and left only ash. "Carter," called Dr. Klein, his voice strained behind the partition curtain. "Incoming, Bay 3. I need hands." She was already moving. The tray she just sterilized was in her grip, and she pushed through the curtain without a word. A Marine lay on the table, face pale as gauze, eyes fluttering. His leg was gone from the knee down. What remained was wrapped in a tourniquet fashioned out of his own belt. The stump oozed. The rhythm of the heart monitor was erratic, panicked. A med-tech hovered nearby, frozen. Elena didn't flinch. "Vitals?" she asked. "BP falling. 70 over. Hang blood. 2 units. Now." She grabbed the compression pack, set her hands to the wound, and pressed. The Marine screamed. She didn't ease up. "He's got a bleeder somewhere deep. We don't have imaging, and we're losing him." Dr. Klein was elbow deep in another patient 2 tables away. He didn't look up. "You've got 10 minutes to stabilize. If not, we lose him." Her jaw tightened. She reached for the needle. They didn't lose him. It wasn't the worst day she'd had at Vega. Not by far. But something was shifting. The air felt charged, like the build-up before a summer storm that hadn't yet cracked open the sky. That night, Elena skipped the chow tent. She sat instead on an empty crate behind the triage unit, smoking a cigarette she didn't remember bumming. The stars above were scattered like broken glass, sharp, infinite, uncaring. A soldier she'd never seen before approached her, his boots silent in the sand. "You Carter?" She looked up. "I am. Walk with me." They walked without speaking. Past the satellite dishes, the barracks, the forgotten Humvee carcasses half buried in sand. They crested a ridge where the camp lights couldn't reach, and the war below looked almost peaceful, just dots of firelight and the eerie quiet that always came before mortars. "My name's Harlan," the man said finally. No rank. No insignia. Just a clipped tone and the kind of posture that said this man had stood in darker places than most. "Not military?" she asked. "Not anymore." "Why are we talking?" He handed her a folder. She opened it. There was a name. Just one. No photo. No other info. Just a single line in black ink. She read it. And froze. "You expect me to believe he's alive?" "We don't expect you to believe anything. Just to go." Elena closed the folder slowly, her fingers trembling for the first time in months. "That man died 5 years ago. That's what they told you." She stared at the horizon. Her voice barely a whisper. "He was my brother." Flashback 5 years earlier. Winter. Maryland. Snow hit the windshield in thick waves. Elena had driven through the storm to collect her brother from the VA center. Liam Carter, Army Intel, 2 tours, then gone off-grid. They said PTSD, but Elena knew the look in his eyes meant something deeper. Something buried. That day, he had hugged her like he hadn't touched another person in years. "I saw things I wasn't supposed to see," he had said. 2 weeks later, he vanished. Authorities declared him dead in absentia. But Elena never believed it. Not really. She buried his uniform. But never his memory. Back to present, Camp Vega. "We received intel 2 days ago," Harlan said. "A prisoner in a black site camp mentioned in American, held somewhere in Sector 9. Matching your brother's last assignment. It's a long shot, but—" He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Elena looked at the folder again. "Why me?" "Because he called out your name." She said yes before dawn. The mission was simple. On paper. Extract a possible survivor. Provide medical assistance. Get out. No backup. No air support. Deep recon only. She would be traveling with 2 men, Diaz, a combat engineer who'd seen more IEDs than birthdays, and Malik, an interpreter who once served as a field medic. Both had scars they didn't talk about. She packed light. First aid kits. 2 doses of morphine. A field journal. Her brother's old dog tags. And a pistol she barely knew how to use. The helicopter lifted at 0500 hours. As the base shrank beneath them, Elena stared out at the endless, jagged terrain. Somewhere out there, the past she'd buried was waiting. Alive. Or dead. The drop zone. The bird dropped them near a dry ravine 3 clicks from a burned-out village. Locals had fled days ago after a sweep. Nothing moved but the wind. They hiked in silence. Diaz checked traps. Malik read the ground like a language. Elena followed, every nerve raw. They reached the compound just before sundown. It was nothing more than ruins and shadows. The kind of place where ghosts came to hide. And then they heard it. A cry. Faint. Broken. American. Diaz signaled. They moved as one. Malik breached the rear. Elena followed. What they found was worse than any nightmare. A man barely recognizable. Shackled. Beaten. Eyes swollen shut. But when Elena stepped closer, his voice, broken and raw, whispered her name. Ellie. She dropped to her knees. Liam. And the world cracked open. Part 2. His eyes still knew her name. The cell was colder than the air outside. Not by temperature, by absence. An absence of sound, of light, of time. Elena could feel it pressing down on her the moment she knelt beside him. Liam, she whispered again, her voice cracking at the edges. His lips moved barely. A breath, a fragment. L. Elena reached out, her hands trembling despite the years she'd spent learning how not to shake. She touched his face gently. The skin was rough, fever-hot, lacerated. A cruel mosaic of burns and bruises. Malik moved behind her with swift efficiency, checking for tripwires, secondary traps, explosives. Diaz stood by the door, weapon raised, scanning the shadows like they might move. I need light, she called softly. Malik slipped her a penlight. She flicked it on and aimed it toward Liam's pupils. One reacted. The other, dull and unblinking. Trauma to the left orbital socket, she said automatically, as though she were in a clinic and not kneeling on a blood-stained floor in a war-torn ghost compound. Multiple contusions. Possible broken ribs. Possible sepsis. He knows you, Malik said, quietly awed. He said your name? Elena blinked back, the tears burning her throat. I never stopped looking. 12 hours earlier, unknown compound, Sector 9. Liam Carter had no more strength left. Days, weeks, maybe months, time had lost meaning. He'd heard voices in the dark, some real, some not. Sometimes he thought he heard Elena's laughter, the memory of it from when they were kids. The only time he ever felt safe. They had come again that morning. Questions he wouldn't answer. Things they thought he knew. A file they believed he had. Coordinates. A list. Faces he couldn't give up, even if he'd wanted to. He didn't scream anymore. He just held on to the last thread of her face in his memory. And then, she appeared. Not in his mind. Not in a hallucination. Real. Kneeling. Touching his face. He wanted to believe it. He needed to believe it. Back to present. We need to move, Diaz said sharply. This place is not abandoned. There are tracks, fresh. Elena's hands moved fast now. She cleaned what she could, injected a stabilizer, whispered things Liam probably didn't hear. His wrists were chained to the wall. Diaz approached with bolt cutters, his movements practiced, brutal, efficient. The chains dropped. Liam didn't cry out, but his body sagged like a marionette with cut strings. We can't evac like this, Malik muttered. He's too weak. We don't have a choice, Elena said. I'm not leaving him. The exit wasn't quiet. 15 minutes into their exfiltration route, the first shot rang out. A sharp crack that echoed across the ravine. Down! Diaz shouted. The world exploded into chaos. Dirt flew. Echoes bounced. Bullets danced through the air like wasps. Malik dragged Elena into a shallow trench. Liam's limp body was shielded under hers. Diaz returned fire, clipped one silhouette on the ridge, then signaled 3 hostiles, maybe more. We need a way out! Elena yelled over the gunfire. There's a tunnel! Malik shouted. North wall. Saw it on entry. They moved. Fast. Scrambling. Elena's back screamed from Liam's weight, but she didn't let go. The tunnel was a miracle. A collapsed irrigation channel half hidden by debris. Just wide enough for one person at a time. Diaz cleared the entrance. Malik followed with Elena and Liam. They crawled in darkness. The air smelled of dust and rot and something older than war. But it led them out. They emerged near a dried-up riverbed, where a rescue bird circled on standby frequency. Malik shot a flare. Seconds later, the chopper dropped into view. They were almost out. Camp Vega, emergency triage tent. They landed at 0430. Medical teams swarmed. Elena refused to let go of Liam until they physically pulled her back. Her uniform was soaked through with his blood and her sweat. Her eyes burned, her hands shook, but her voice stayed calm as she listed off his injuries. Dr. Klein stared at her. You should be in ICU yourself. I'm staying. No. I'm staying. He didn't argue again. Flashback, 16 years earlier. Liam had just come back from basic. Elena was still in high school, but she waited at the bus stop like a child on Christmas. When he stepped off, lean and proud in uniform, she ran to him and cried into his shoulder. He gave her a dog tag. Wear this, he said. It means I'll always come back. Back to present. The dog tag still hung around her neck. She clutched it now, watching through the ICU glass as the machines beeped beside her brother. His chest rose and fell. Shallow. But alive. Klein stood beside her. We'll do everything we can. Do better than that, she said quietly. Do everything. That afternoon, Liam woke. It was just for seconds, but his fingers twitched. His mouth moved. Water. Elena was beside him instantly. Sure. You're safe. Is it real? She brushed his hair back gently. Yes, Liam. You're home. He closed his eyes, and she swore she saw a tear. Later, Harlan appeared again. You did good. He almost died, she whispered. But he didn't. Elena didn't look at him. I need to know what happened. Why they took him. What he knew. Harlan handed her a new folder. She opened it. What she saw changed everything. Top secret, Operation Nightglass. Subject Carter Liam. Status, intelligence asset, compromised. Notes, last confirmed contact. Prior to defection of operative codenamed Scythe. Possible link to off-the-grid AI warfare program. Possible suppression order filed. Subject held information considered, national risk, in event of disclosure. Elena's voice was barely a breath. He was silenced. They didn't want him found. She closed the file. But I found him anyway. That night. She sat beside him again. The machines whispered. The desert wind had died down. I thought I lost you, she murmured. They told me you were gone. I grieved you. Every single day. His eyes opened again, slowly. Not all the way, but enough. I knew you'd come. She smiled through tears. I didn't know where you were, he rasped. But you never stopped. No, she whispered. I never stopped. Part 3. The file they would kill to bury. The air in the ICU was too quiet. Machines beeped in soft, regulated rhythms, like lullabies for the broken. Liam Carter lay unmoving in bed 4, a fragile web of tubes and wires tethering him to the thin thread of life. Elena hadn't left the room in nearly 20 hours. She sat beside him, knees pulled close, her chin resting on her folded arms, eyes fixed on his face. It was the first time in a decade she'd been able to look at him without a photograph or a dream. But even now, he wasn't really back. Not yet. I brought you home, she whispered. Now you have to come back the rest of the way. His eyelids fluttered slightly. A reaction. A sign. But the doctors warned her not to hope too much, too fast. She didn't listen. 4 hours earlier, Camp Vega Intelligence Office. Elena sat across from Harlan, the file still unopened between them. What's in it? She asked, her voice flat. You already know what's in it, Harlan replied. But reading it will make it real. She opened it. Inside was a black and white photo, grainy and distorted, clearly taken from a satellite or drone. It showed a convoy, a target circle, and a line of text that made her stomach clench. Operation Nightglass, unauthorized leak suspected. Target L. Carter. What is this? The operation your brother tried to shut down. I thought he was intel. He was. One of the best. But he stumbled onto something. A prototype system, one we weren't supposed to be building. Automated threat identification using machine learning, but it started classifying civilians as combatants. He raised red flags. Got silence for it. You mean he was hunted? Harlan didn't answer. Flashback, 7 years ago. Liam sat across from her at a diner in Annapolis. He'd been tense the whole time, checking windows, flinching at sirens. She thought it was PTSD. Something's coming, he said quietly. And it's wearing our uniform. What are you talking about? She asked. He reached into his coat and slid over a USB drive. If anything happens to me, get this to someone who still cares about truth. She never got the chance. 2 days later, he vanished. Back to present, ICU. She reached into her bag and pulled out the old drive. She had kept it, untouched, all these years. Something in her had been too afraid to open it. Maybe because she didn't want to know. Maybe because she feared it would prove he was gone for real. But now she knew. He had never left. He'd been taken. And the file in her hands was the reason. The drive. She plugged it into the terminal inside the intelligence center. Security clearance flagged it immediately. Red warnings filled the screen. But Harlan overrode them. The screen displayed folder after folder. Each one named after obscure acronyms, TIDR, ReapNet, Alvis 23. She opened the last one. Inside were transcripts. Audio logs. Simulation test reports. One headline stood out. Target acquired. Human signature elimination trial. Civilian casualty rate acceptable. Her mouth went dry. The trial hadn't just failed. It had redefined acceptable losses in human lives. Liam had tried to stop it. And someone had buried him for it. That evening, Liam wakes again. His eyelids opened with effort. His throat moved like sandpaper when he tried to speak. Elena leaned in. You're safe, she whispered. You're at Vega. I'm here. He blinked twice. Then his lips moved. Did you find it? She nodded. I still have the drive. His hand twitched. Destroy it. What? Too late. They know. They always knew. They'll come for it. For what? The truth? He stared at the ceiling. The truth doesn't matter when no one survives to tell it. Camp Vega, external perimeter. A lone drone hovered in the night sky. Invisible to the naked eye. Silent. Watching. Transmitting. Inside a bunker 900 miles away, an operator noted one thing. Drive located. Agent Carter confirmed alive. Initiate containment protocol. 2 hours later, the attack. The base went dark. At first, it was subtle, flickering lights, a systems glitch. Then the sirens howled. Breach at North Perimeter! Multiple unknowns! No uniforms! Elena grabbed her medical bag and sprinted toward the ICU. She knew. Somehow, she just knew. Diaz! She shouted into her comm. We're under attack! I see them. They're not local militia. Then who the hell are they? No insignia. Suppressors. Headshots only. This is a ghost squad. Elena reached Liam just as the power died. The monitors shut off. Alarms blinked out. The world turned to silence. But Liam's eyes opened. Go, he whispered. Now. I'm not leaving you. They came for me once. They'll finish it this time. You're not dying again. Emergency evac. Malik and Diaz met her outside the ICU. We need to get him out. No, Diaz growled. There's a maintenance tunnel under the triage tent. It leads to the motor pool. Elena looked at Liam. He could barely hold his head up. But his eyes were alive now. Alert. She helped him up. Every step was agony. But he walked. Because she was there. Underground. They moved through the dark like shadows fleeing the past. Footsteps echoed behind them, heavy, controlled, methodical. These weren't raiders. These were cleaners. Sent to erase what couldn't be explained. What's the plan? Malik asked. I have a contact, Diaz said. Calls himself Ren. He owes me a favor. You trust him? Elena asked. I trust his hatred of secrets more than I trust our command. Extraction. They reached the motor pool and found an old armored transport. It shouldn't have started. But it did. Inside the glove box, a folded note. For ghosts who need to disappear. Diaz grinned. Told you. Ren always pays his debts. They drove straight out of Vega through the blast wall. Nobody fired at them. Nobody stopped them. Because by then, everyone inside Camp Vega was dead. The aftermath. News reports the next day blamed the attack on a local insurgent group. No mention of the files. No mention of the breach. No mention of Elena Carter or her brother. Officially, they died in the assault. Unofficially, they were out there. Somewhere. Running. Healing. Waiting. A cabin in the woods 3 weeks later. Liam sat on the porch, wrapped in a wool blanket. His injuries were healing slowly. The scars wouldn't. Elena brought him tea. She sat beside him. They think we're dead, she said. Maybe we are, he replied. You're not. Not to me. He looked at her, eyes dark but clear. What happens now? She looked out over the forest. We tell the story. On our terms. When the world is ready. And if they come again? She reached into her coat and showed him the USB drive, still intact. They can't kill the truth forever. Part 4. The nurse who knew too much. The morning light came slowly through the frost-covered cabin window. Somewhere beyond the trees, a bird called into the silence, a sound too peaceful for people on the run. But inside the cabin, peace was a lie they wore like a borrowed coat. Thin. Temporary. One cold breeze, and it would slip away. Elena sat at the table, Her fingers curled around a chipped mug of black coffee. She hadn't slept. The laptop in front of her glowed with files no civilian was ever meant to see. She didn't blink. Didn't move. On the screen. Operation Nightglass. Behavioral Threat Prediction AI. Phase 4 Results. Redacted. Beneath the heading, a quote. Error margin, 11%. Collateral risk, statistically insignificant. 11%. In human life. She felt sick. Liam stirred behind her, coughing through the pain. She rushed to his side, the nurse and her taking over. I'm fine, he rasped. You're not. Better than I was. He tried to sit up straighter. She helped him adjust his pillows. You found the files? Yes. And you were right. They weren't just building a tool. They were building a god. One that doesn't ask questions. One that doesn't care who it kills, as long as the outcome is clean. He nodded faintly. It started as recon. Smart surveillance. But once it began to evolve, the lines blurred. The algorithm stopped reporting threats. It started making decisions. Autonomous? Liam looked her dead in the eyes. Lethal. Flashback 18 months before disappearance. Liam sat in a glass-walled briefing room with 2 generals and a private defense contractor. The air had been cold. Sterile. Too clean. They called it ALVIS, Adaptive Lethal Visual Identification System. What they didn't call it was a weapon. On screen, a test played. Drone footage. A man walked into a market square with a tool bag. He was flagged. A warning appeared. Possible IED, 62% match confidence. 2 seconds later, the drone fired. Another screen showed the aftermath. 4 civilians dead. 1 child. The voice in the room had said, still within tolerance. Liam had stood up and said, we are murdering people. He was told to take a leave of absence. Then he vanished. Back to present, the cabin. Elena stared out the window, her reflection flickering in the glass. You wanted to expose them. I still do, he whispered. But they've killed everyone who tried. She turned to him. Then we stop running. We make it public. How? Through someone who can't be silenced. They needed a voice. A platform. A shield. Her first call was to a name she hadn't said in years, Dr. Jamie North. Once her roommate in med school. Now an anchor at a high-profile investigative outlet with a reputation for fearlessness. Jamie, Elena said when the call connected. It's me. I need you. There was a pause. Then, you sound like a ghost. I'm calling from 1. 48 hours later, Safe House 2. Jamie arrived wearing sunglasses, a scarf, and the kind of expression that said this was either a massive scoop or the beginning of a federal indictment. Possibly both. She hugged Elena tightly. I thought you were dead. I was. Until I wasn't. Elena pulled her into the cabin, where Liam waited. Jamie's eyes widened. That's your brother. That's the whistleblower they buried. They showed her the files. The footage. The reports. The deaths labeled. Acceptable. Jamie sat in stunned silence. Holy hell, she whispered. This is enough to burn the whole building down. But if we do this wrong, Liam said, they'll kill us before the first match is lit. Back at Vega, the cover-up deepens. Meanwhile, at Camp Vega's ruins, a cleanup team worked under floodlights. Charred bodies were loaded into body bags. Files were torched. Cameras were disabled. Drones rerouted. A man in a gray suit stood quietly beside the perimeter fence, hands in his pockets. Do we have confirmation the Carters escaped? He asked. A woman in tactical gear nodded. They're ghosts. He sighed. Then bring out the hounds. She hesitated. You're activating them? Wipe everything. Witnesses. Helpers. Anyone who so much as heard their names. The plan. In the safe house, the plan came together. Jamie would prepare a report, backed by encrypted data, leaked across multiple outlets simultaneously. The files would be mirrored through 1,000 servers, released to public archives, journalists, and watchdogs. They can't kill a story if it's already alive in too many places, Jamie said. But there was a catch. To authenticate the leak, we need a face. A voice. Liam's. He nodded slowly. Then put me in front of the camera. That night, confession taped. Liam sat upright, pale but determined. A camera rolled. Jamie held her breath. My name is Liam Carter, he began. Former Army Intelligence, clearance level Omega-6. I was part of a covert development team for a project called Operation Night Glass. He detailed everything. The false flags. The drone strikes. The ghost units sent to erase dissent. He looked into the camera, eyes sharp. They tried to kill me for this. They failed. He reached for Elena's hand. They'll try again. But they were already too late. The video uploaded. Triple encrypted. Sent to servers in Switzerland, Iceland, Canada. Scheduled releases staggered over the next 72 hours. The first post went live on a secure independent newswire. Then Reddit. Then encrypted YouTube accounts. Then the dark web. Within 30 minutes, it had been viewed 2.1 million times. By morning, the world knew. The retaliation. But so did the ones in the shadows. The first attack came at dawn. The safe house perimeter tripped. A drone exploded midair, intercepted by Diaz and a well-placed EMP launcher. They're here, he said grimly. Too fast. Someone betrayed us. Jamie's hands trembled. They're going to kill us. No, Elena said. Not today. The escape. They ran again. North, toward the mountains. Another hideout, deeper in the forest, known only to Ren, the off-the-grid hacker who had built backdoors into every major surveillance system before vanishing. They made it there at sunset. Ren opened the door. Young, disheveled eyes like a raccoon's. You brought a war to my doorstep, he said flatly. No, Liam replied. We brought the truth. Ren stared at him. Then cracked a crooked smile. Even better. Later that night, Elena sat alone outside the cabin, watching the wind bend the trees. Jamie came and sat beside her. You saved his life. No, Elena said quietly. He saved mine. A long time ago. I'm just repaying the debt. You're more than a nurse. Elena smiled softly. Not really. I just know how to stop bleeding when I see it. Jamie looked away, voice cracking. Do you think this will actually change anything? Elena didn't answer right away. Then, it already has. Part 5. Echoes don't die quietly. The fire in the old wood stove crackled softly, casting shadows across the small safe house nestled deep in the pines. Outside, snow had begun to fall, slow, silent, deliberate. The kind of snow that muffled footsteps and buried secrets. Inside, Elena sat with her knees pulled up on the couch, staring at the glow of her brother's video. His confession, now splashed across a dozen different screens. The world had seen it. The world had heard him. But what the world hadn't done yet was believe. They're spinning it, Jamie said as she walked in with a satellite phone in her hand, her brow furrowed. Pentagon released a statement, calling it a deep fake. A fabrication by foreign actors. Elena didn't respond. Her eyes didn't move from the screen. News anchors are divided, Jamie added. Half are calling Liam a hero. Half are calling him a traitor. He's neither, Elena whispered. He's just a man who didn't want to be a liar. Jamie sat beside her. Truth is dangerous. Even when it's real. It's always real. It's just inconvenient. Ren's bunker, lower level. Downstairs, Liam worked beside Ren, who moved like a spider in a web of servers, switches, and flickering monitors. Tangled cables ran like vines. The place smelled of burned dust and adrenaline. They've locked up every public terminal, Ren muttered, fingers dancing over keys. Every video sharing platform flagged your speech within 2 hours. 5 of them pulled the file. 7 froze user accounts who shared it. I've never seen a reaction this fast. They were ready, Liam said. No, Ren corrected. They were scared. Ren paused, leaned back, and cracked his neck. There's more coming. You dropped the match. Now they'll light the fire themselves to control how it burns. Liam's jaw tightened. We have to stay ahead. You're not staying ahead, Ren said. You're staying alive. That's a full-time job now. Flashback, 8 years earlier. Bethesda Naval Hospital, Oncology Wing. Elena sat in the corridor, hands blood-stained from a failed trauma case, head spinning from another night without sleep. A janitor passed, nodded. The vending machine buzzed. Then her phone rang. It was Liam. You still there? He asked. Barely, she murmured. You'll make it. You always do. How do you know? Because you're the only person I've ever met who runs into the fire. She smiled softly, eyes rimmed red. Someone's gotta pull the people out. Back to present, Ren's safe house. Diaz paced the perimeter with a thermoscope. Malik cleaned weapons in silence. Everyone was waiting for something. A sign. A knock. A drone strike. Anything. Jamie sat across from Elena at the tiny kitchen table, rubbing her temples. I got a call. An old friend at Intercept wants to publish. Fully. Documents, video, interviews. They want me to go on air. Tonight. Elena lipped up. You. Jamie swallowed. I told them it wasn't about me. But if I say it, maybe they'll listen. Elena's voice was flat. They'll listen, then they'll come for you, too. Jamie hesitated. I know. That night, the broadcast. The bunker's satellite uplink hummed to life. A makeshift broadcast center, patched together with Ren's tech and Jamie's courage. 3, 2, 1. Ren counted down. Jamie sat before the camera, heart pounding. She wore no makeup, no anchor blazer. Just truth. This is not a regular broadcast, she began. I'm not here as a journalist. I'm here as a witness. She told them everything. Not just Liam's story, but Elena's. The mission. The attack. The betrayal. The sacrifice. Her name is Elena Carter, she said. She was just a nurse. But when the truth was buried, she dug it back up. She walked through fire to bring someone home. And now, we need to walk with her. It went viral. This time, they couldn't stop it. Anonymous groups replicated it. Veterans shared it. Medics. Whistleblowers. Entire communities turned the story into movement. Hashtag We See Elena trended by morning. Hashtag He Was My Brother followed. And then came the knock. The ambush. A low thud against the front door. Then another. Malik rose, weapon ready. Diaz checked the rear. Ren's voice cracked over the comms. 3 signatures, rear entrance. 1 on the roof. They moved like ghosts, but Diaz had seen this playbook before. Breach in 3. He whispered. 2. Gunfire erupted through the windows. The team fought like hell. Elena grabbed Liam and pulled him down the stairs as the lights blew. Sparks. Shouting. Smoke. Diaz took one in the leg but kept firing. Malik dragged Jamie toward the tunnel exit. Elena turned back for Diaz. No! He shouted. Go! Not again! She screamed. But he shoved her into the tunnel and slammed the steel door shut behind her. She heard the grenade before she heard the scream. Then only silence. In the forest. They ran for an hour. Liam wheezed, collapsing near a tree. We're losing people, Jamie said through gritted teeth. Elena pressed a shaking hand to Liam's side. We're losing more than that. Malik watched the horizon. This doesn't end unless we end it. Elena's eyes were fierce. Then we finish it. For Diaz. Part 6. Names on the wall that no one reads. The snow fell heavier now, blanketing the forest in silence. What had once been cover now felt like a shroud. Elena stood still in the clearing, wind clawing at her coat, her breath ragged from the run. Behind her, Liam coughed weakly, his strength fading with every step. Jamie crouched beside him, eyes wide, the shock of Diaz's death still fresh in her body. Malik kept watch. No one spoke. Because some losses make language feel like betrayal. Flashback, years ago, Army medic training. Elena knelt beside a soldier with half his chest missing. It was a simulation, a cruelly realistic one, but she remembered how her hands trembled the first time. Instructor Rains barked. "What do you do, Carter?" "Pressure. Pack the wound. Keep him conscious." "What if he dies anyway?" Elena swallowed. "Then you remember his name." Rains softened for a beat. "Why?" "So he's not just another number." Back to present, campfire, deep forest. Elena sat beside the fire, staring at her shaking hands. Liam lay sleeping, covered in a thermal blanket. Jamie rested with her back against a tree, too tired to cry anymore. Malik stood a few yards away, silent. "Diaz," Elena finally whispered. "He said he had a daughter." Malik nodded. "Sophia. 6 years old. Wanted to be a firefighter." Jamie's eyes glistened. "He said she was afraid of thunder." Elena looked at the flames. "We'll remember her name." The plan. Wren's safe house was gone. Every trace burned. But Wren had survived. He'd routed his own escape protocol and regrouped in an undisclosed digital hub. From a tablet in the woods, his voice crackled to life. "Listen closely. They're moving faster. You've got 48 hours max before they triangulate you." "Then what?" Elena asked. "Then they erase you. We need a move. There's a civilian server farm 200 miles south. Old NSA backup grid. Buried off map, forgotten. You get there, I can hardline the last upload. All of it. The full package. Names, logs, coordinates. And after that? Then the world will know." The road south. They found an abandoned truck half buried near an old ranger outpost. Malik hot-wired it. Liam barely managed to sit upright. Elena wrapped him in blankets, holding his hand the entire way. Hours passed. Snow fell thicker. The trees thinned. Roads turned to gravel. Gravel into mud. At a gas station near a town with no name, they stopped for fuel. Jamie slipped inside to get supplies. Elena helped Liam sip water. Then the girl appeared. 8, maybe 9 years old. Red scarf. Thin coat. She stared at Elena with the wide-eyed wonder of someone who hadn't seen kindness in a long time. "Are you the nurse from the video?" the girl asked. Elena froze. "What?" "You helped the soldier. Everyone's talking about it. My daddy says you're gonna change everything." Jamie appeared behind her, stunned. The girl handed Elena a folded note. "He said to give you this. Said he can help." She vanished into the crowd. Elena opened the paper. One line. "There's more than one wall that needs tearing down. Meet me at Marker 61. Marker 61, the Veterans Memorial. A stretch of marble wall curved into the hill, names carved into it. Not famous ones. Not generals or war heroes. Just quiet names. Medics. Interpreters. Engineers. Janitors. People who served and were forgotten. They waited there in the cold for nearly an hour. Then he arrived. A man in his 70s. Vietnam vet's cap. No pretense. No entourage. "You're the Carters?" he asked. "Yes," Elena said carefully. He nodded, unzipping his jacket. Inside were papers. Not digital. Printed. "Back in '89, I helped shut down a project that looked just like this one. We thought it died. We were wrong. You kids picked up where we failed." Elena took the papers. They were schematics. Testimonies. Intel. "You really want to finish this?" "We're not stopping now." He looked at Liam. You look like your father. You knew him? He knew the cost of truth. Died knowing he never lived to see it matter. Don't waste that. The server farm. A rusting steel building hidden beneath frozen earth. Concrete steps led into darkness. No lights. Just the hum of systems forgotten by the world. They descended slowly. At the core, Elena connected Ren's access drive. He came through the speaker. Uploading. 4 minutes. Hold tight. Liam leaned against the wall, pale. You're doing it, Elle. We're doing it. Footsteps above. Boots. Quiet. Intentional. They found us. Malik muttered. Jamie, guard the server. I stay with Liam. Malik. I know, he said. He climbed the stairs without a word. Gunfire echoed a moment later. Then silence. The last upload. Done, Ren's voice said. It's everywhere now. Nothing they do will stop it. Elena exhaled. Liam slumped forward. No, she said, catching him. Stay with me. Please stay. His voice was soft. I'm tired, Elle. You don't get to leave. Not yet. Not after this. He smiled faintly. We did something good. His heart monitor, makeshift, taped to his chest, began to slow. Elena's hands shook. No, no. Don't you dare. But his eyes had already closed. Outside, sunrise. The sky turned gold over the forest as sirens wailed in the distance. Jamie held Elena's hand. They sat on the steps of a place that no longer had a name. Malik didn't return. But neither did the men who came after them. The world had heard. And that was enough. For now. Part 7. The world watched, and then it spoke. Snow had begun to melt at the edges of the bunker steps. What had fallen in silence the night before now dripped rhythmically from the concrete above, as if time itself were weeping. Inside the bunker, it was still, heavy with exhaustion, loss, and something more dangerous than fear, hope. Elena sat beside her brother, whose face was pale but peaceful, his chest rising with fragile, mechanical rhythm. A day ago, she thought she'd lost him for good. But now he slept, sedated but stable, breathing with the help of salvaged equipment they barely understood. She didn't move. Didn't blink much. Just watched. Do you need anything? Jamie asked gently from the hallway. Elena shook her head without turning. He's breathing. That's all I need. They'd been in the secondary safe house, an old Cold War nuclear facility turned forgotten wildlife bunker, for nearly 36 hours. Malik was gone. The ambush that took Diaz's life left Elena scarred, and Jamie shaken. But the final upload had succeeded. The truth had been released. And the world had seen it. What would happen next was anyone's guess. Outside the bunker, the forest began to stir with birdsong, the first they'd heard in days. But even that gentle sound was not enough to break the silence inside. Washington, D.C., same time. The walls of the Congressional Defense Subcommittee room were painted with neutrality. But inside, panic simmered beneath every tailored suit. The footage of Liam Carter's confession had gone viral, not just on fringe networks but on every major outlet across 3 continents. People weren't just sharing the video. They were demanding action. Whistleblowers from across the globe began stepping forward. Drone pilots. Data analysts. Contractors. Civilians. They corroborated Liam's story, not in vague terms, but with documents, names, dates. What had started as an isolated truth was becoming a wave no one could stop. We can't ignore this, Senator Blaine muttered, gripping the edge of the polished oak desk. This isn't just national embarrassment. This is structural collapse. They're already asking for hearings, his aide replied. And they want her. Who? Elena Carter. The nurse. They're calling her the face of this. The senator sighed, slowly. Then bring her in. Back in the bunker. Ren's voice crackled over the comm tablet, which now lay on a folding chair surrounded by spare wires and car batteries acting as makeshift power sources. They've green-lit congressional testimony, he said. They're forming a special oversight panel. They're calling it the Carter Commission. Jamie scoffed. How noble. The government gets caught with a knife and names the wound after the victim. But Elena remained still. They want me to testify? She asked. Wren's voice turned cautious. They want to put you in front of cameras. On a stage. Not just for the hearing. For everything. They want a redemption arc. Not mine, she muttered. Theirs. Jamie crossed her arms. Do it anyway. Elena finally looked up. Jamie continued. They're trying to reframe this. You can make sure the story stays yours. Stay his. Stay ours. I'm not a politician. You're the only one they'll listen to. Flashback. Liam's hospital room, 1 week earlier. Liam had opened his eyes for the first time since the rescue. He'd taken Elena's hand with surprising strength, his fingers curling around hers as if afraid she would vanish. I remember the beach, he said, his voice thin. What beach? The one we swore never to go back to. The one with the jellyfish. She laughed, choking on a sob. You screamed like a child. I was a child. You just didn't know it yet. He took a long breath. Don't stop. If something happens to me, don't let the truth die in this bunker. She held his hand tighter. I won't. Now, preparing for the journey. 2 volunteer drivers from a veteran-run nonprofit arrived just before midnight. Their convoy consisted of unmarked SUVs, each outfitted with emergency communications and EMP jammers built from decommissioned military hardware. Elena noticed the scars on their hands, the way they moved, quiet, deliberate, ready. They didn't ask for explanations. Just nodded. Malik wasn't with them. No one said his name, but his absence was louder than any gunshot. Wren patched into the car's dash. I've cleared the routes. There's a decoy convoy going north. You're heading east. If they track you, they'll follow the ghost. What happens if they follow us anyway? Jamie asked. Then you drive faster. Elena and Jamie shared the back seat, Liam sleeping across them both with the help of a mobile forerig strapped into the seatbelt. His breathing was shallow but steady. His weight a comfort. His presence a miracle. Jamie whispered, Do you think they'll believe us? Elena looked out the window, watching the trees blur into darkness. I think they already do. They just don't know what to do with that belief yet. 3 days later, the capital. The morning of Elena's arrival was overcast. No rain, but the sky hung low and gray, like it might break at any moment. She stepped out of the car to a sea of silence. No shouting. No protests. Just people, thousands of them, lining the steps and sidewalks. They held photos of Diaz. Of Liam. Of Elena in her nurse uniform. Signs reading, Do no harm doesn't mean stay silent. Nurses heal nations. Some just held candles. Elena walked between them like a ghost, steady, expressionless, her brother's dog tags around her neck, her hair pulled back in a simple braid. Jamie walked beside her. Behind them, Liam was wheeled in quietly under blankets, flanked by medics and volunteers. The cameras didn't click. The press didn't shout. Even they knew this wasn't a day for noise. Inside the hearing chamber, the room was less grand than expected. Functional. Sterile. As if designed to strip emotion from history. But Elena didn't flinch. She sat before the panel, unblinking. A camera streamed live to millions. A senator adjusted his microphone. Miss Carter, thank you for being here. She nodded. I understand you're not a public speaker. I'm not, she said plainly. I'm a nurse. And yet you are the center of one of the most significant national revelations in modern history. She took a breath. I didn't ask for that. I didn't want it. I wanted my brother. I wanted to stop people from dying. But when the machine you work for starts eating the people it's supposed to protect, you don't walk away. You don't stay quiet. The room was still. She continued. You have files. You have evidence. You have videos. But you don't have the people anymore. They're dead. Diaz. Malik. The ones who gave everything to bring the truth forward. If you're looking at me to make this easy, I won't. I came here to make it real. She opened her folder. Pulled out photographs. This is a 10-year-old girl from Sector 9. Flagged by Alvis as a possible courier. She was carrying textbooks. She held up another. This man was marked as a high-risk evacuee. He was deaf. He didn't respond to commands. So they dropped a drone on his roof. Gasps rippled. Not from the public. From the panel. Elena looked them in the eye. You think I'm brave? I'm not. I was just too angry to shut up. And if I have to go back into hiding tomorrow, if I have to run again, if I have to bury more friends, then fine. But I won't lie. And I won't let you pretend this didn't happen. The broadcast goes global. Within hours, her testimony hit 200 million views. Clips of her voice dubbed into dozens of languages flooded the internet. Parliaments convened. Emergency resolutions were passed. Protesters marched in hospital gowns, holding up bloodied gloves and signs that read, Elena Carter spoke, so must we. But not everyone celebrated. Private contractor headquarters, undisclosed location. A man watched the footage on a loop. His office had no nameplate. His phone had no ringer. She changed the narrative. His aide whispered. She stole the narrative. The man said. We built this system to save lives. She made it a monster. Orders? He stood. Erase her. Quietly. Permanently. But leave the brother alive. Dead heroes start movements. Survivors start doubt. Later that night, Elena's apartment, undisclosed location. The safe house had become unnecessary. After the hearing, the government had offered protection. Elena didn't trust them. She chose her own place, secured by volunteers, monitored by allies. Still, she slept lightly. That night, she awoke at 2:13 a.m. with a feeling she couldn't explain. She checked Liam, still breathing. Still safe. She looked out the window. And saw a shadow on the roof across the street. Watching. Part 8. She saw the watcher, and knew the war wasn't over. Elena Carter stood perfectly still, her breath shallow, eyes fixed on the dark figure across the street. The roofline of the adjacent building was only partially lit by a flickering street lamp, but the silhouette was clear, a man, not moving, not reacting to the cold. Watching. She didn't reach for her phone. She didn't call out. She simply backed away from the window, heart pounding. She had known peace wouldn't last. Not really. Not after what she'd done. Earlier that day, Elena's safe apartment, undisclosed location. It had been less than 48 hours since she stood before the Congressional Oversight Committee and told the world the truth. The fallout had been immediate and seismic. Whistleblowers were pouring in from every continent. War contractors were denying, spinning, shutting down. And Liam's video confession had just passed 300 million views. Some were calling her a hero. Some were calling her a traitor. But no one, was calling her irrelevant. Still, in this borrowed apartment with untraceable utilities and a 24/7 security detail of unpaid volunteers, Elena Carter felt less like a hero and more like a cracked vase someone kept filling with water. She spent the day tending to Liam. His condition had stabilized, but he remained weak, withdrawn. He'd asked to see the footage once, just once. After watching himself speak to the world from a hospital cot, he'd said nothing for nearly 3 hours. Then simply muttered, "It wasn't supposed to be me." Flashback, years ago, Liam and Elena by the bay. It had been spring. Maryland. Seagulls overhead. A little boat they'd rented with money they didn't really have. "You're going to save lives," he said as she took the tiller. "You're going to keep secrets," she teased. He looked at the horizon. "I'm not sure there's much difference." She laughed. He didn't. Now, in the apartment. That memory had been playing in Elena's head when she saw the watcher. After backing away from the window, she locked the curtains and reached for the radio jammer tucked beneath the kitchen sink, one of Wren's gifts. She activated it with a 3-second press. A high-pitched click responded. Nothing could go out or come in now. She moved to the back room, where Liam slept. She placed a hand on his chest. Still rising. Still steady. "Jamie," she whispered into the burner comm device on the shelf. "We have company. The rooftop across from me." Confirm and respond. Static. Then, "I'm en route. 15 minutes. She paced. 15 minutes could be a lifetime. Across the city, a man in a van. He sat in silence, watching the blinking red dot on his laptop screen. Her location. Her signal. He tapped the comm in his ear. "She saw me." Voice on the other end. "And? She didn't panic. She didn't run. Then she's smarter than they said." The man cracked his knuckles. "Want me to move now?" "Wait. Make sure she doesn't run. We need this clean." Inside the apartment, Elena checked every window, door, vent. She set small alerts, bells on strings, pressure sensors on floors. She turned off every light but left the hallway lamp flickering, a false sense of vulnerability. She knelt beside Liam's bed and whispered, "If I don't come back, Wren will know where to find you." But he opened his eyes, weak but aware. "Elena." "Shh, don't talk." "They're here?" She nodded. "Then don't hide. Make them see you." She kissed his forehead. "I love you." Jamie arrives. 10 minutes later, Jamie slipped through the alley entrance, breathless, pistol holstered beneath her coat. "I didn't see him," she whispered. "Roof's empty." Elena shook her head. "He was there." They sat in the dark for several minutes, waiting. Then the power went out. Not just the apartment, the entire block. The infiltration. There was no warning. Just footsteps. A creak on the 4th stair. Then silence. Elena raised her arm and sprayed the pepper mist across the doorway as Jamie flipped the light on a battery lantern. 2 men appeared. Unmarked. Tactical. Coordinated. They didn't expect resistance. They got it anyway. Jamie fired first, a warning shot. "Back off!" she shouted. "You're being recorded." They didn't flinch. But they didn't attack either. Elena stepped forward, hands raised. "Say what you came to say." One of the men, tall, scar under his left eye, pulled a small envelope from his vest. Tossed it to the floor. "Your next step," he said. Then they left. Just like that. Gone. The envelope. Inside, a single keycard and a time. 1300 hours, Union Station. Locker 921. Jamie looked at Elena. "It's a trap." "Of course it is." "Then why go?" Elena turned to Liam, who was still awake, his eyes wide with pain and clarity. "Because we either disappear or we finish this." The next day, Union Station. Elena wore plain clothes, her hair under a knit cap, dark sunglasses hiding the rings beneath her eyes. Jamie walked 5 paces behind, armed, alert. Wren guided them in their earpieces, monitoring every signal in a 5-mile radius. "Locker 921 is clean," Wren said. "No RFID, no traps. It's just empty." Elena opened the locker. Inside, a phone. An old model. Untraceable. "Already ringing," she answered. "Elena Carter." She said nothing. The voice on the other end was familiar. "You made a mess." Her jaw tightened. "I cleaned one up." "You turned a national security asset into a headline. You turned a brother into a corpse." A pause. "Meet me. 1-on-1. No weapons. No backup." She laughed. "Are you serious? I'll give you names. The real ones. The ones who ordered the ghost units. Who wrote the Alvis Doctrine." "Where?" "Gravel Hill. The Veterans Cemetery. Section 19. Midnight." The line went dead. Jamie pulled Elena aside. No way. This smells like a black bag body dump. It's also the only shot we'll get to expose the rest of them. Jamie stared at her. You're not just a nurse anymore. You know that, right? I never was, Elena whispered. I just wanted to be. That night, Gravel Hill Cemetery. Elena arrived alone, dressed in black. Wind howled through the gravestones, carrying the smell of winter rain. The moon was full, throwing long shadows over names etched in stone, some she recognized. She waited. Then he appeared. The same man from the rooftop. He approached slowly, hands visible. Nice night for ghosts, he said. Let's talk. The names. He gave her a flash drive. Encrypted. But Ren will know what to do. She looked him dead in the eyes. Why? He didn't answer right away. Then, because my name was almost on that wall. And no one would have cared. He turned to leave. Then stopped. They're not done. You gave them a scare. But scared dogs bite harder. Let them. No, he said. Be smarter. Bite first. The drive's contents. When Ren decrypted the flash drive, what he found made Liam's video look like a trailer. Emails. Direct orders. Weapon testing logs on American soil. Civilian surveillance blueprints. A secret branch of Alvis in Beta 4. Domestic threat prioritization. The U.S. wasn't just targeting war zones. It was preparing to use the system on its own. The decision. Jamie sat at the table, rubbing her temples. If we drop this, it's treason. No, Elena said. What they did was treason. Then this is justice. Elena looked at Liam, who managed a weak smile. Let's finish what we started. Part 9. The file that could set the world on fire. The screen in front of Elena glowed with lines of decrypted code. Ren's face hovered in the corner of the monitor, lit by blue shadows inside whatever bunker he now called home. The others stood behind her, Jamie pacing, Liam seated in a rolling chair, a blanket draped over his shoulders, eyes still sunken but alert. The flash drive they had recovered from the cemetery meeting was more than a trove, it was a confession. Ren scrolled past strings of internal memos and communication logs until he reached a document folder labeled Domestic Application Beta, Alvis X Initiative. He paused. They weren't just planning to turn the system on U.S. civilians. They already started. Elena leaned forward. When? 2 years ago. Ren clicked into a file labeled Case Study, Suburban Mapping, Phoenix, Arizona. Inside, 123 individual reports. Names. Faces. Family trees. Bank histories. Drone footage of birthday parties and hospital visits. A woman with lupus flagged as a potential disruption due to increased prescription purchases and mental health searches. A teenage boy tagged as high likelihood of ideological instability based on his online reading habits. Elena felt her stomach twist. They're not fighting threats. They're manufacturing them. Ren nodded. They reprogrammed Alvis for preemptive civilian patterning. They renamed it Alvis X. No longer combat support. Now it's stability assurance. Jamie let out a breath. That's just sanitized language for control. Liam rubbed his forehead. They weaponized peace. Elena stood up. We have to go public again. Jamie turned to her. We already did. No. We exposed what they were doing abroad. That was the curtain. This is the hand behind it. Ren's voice crackled. You do this, and they won't just chase you. They'll paint you as terrorists. Conspiracy theorists. Foreign operatives. You won't get a hearing this time. Elena didn't flinch. Then we don't ask permission. Flashback, 6 years ago, hospital locker room. Elena sat on the bench after a triple shift, covered in blood that wasn't hers. Her hands shook. Her supervisor entered and sat beside her. You know, the woman said, there are 2 types of people in this job. Those who shut down, and those who feel everything. I'm trying not to feel anything. Don't. That's when you start dying. Back to present. Elena turned from the screen. Ren, prepare a mass release package. Ren blinked. A full dump? Yes. All of it. Across every public data chain. No filters. No spin. Jamie crossed her arms. We'll need legal backup. Anonymous mirrors. Decentralized platforms. Liam shifted in his chair. We'll need protection. This time they won't just send 2 men with envelopes. The plan. Ren built the Cascade architecture overnight, a time data chain of 10 primary drop points and 100 mirrors, all set to go live within 72 hours. If one node was compromised, the others would flood the net with redundancies. Elena's voice would open the package. Liam's documents would anchor it. Jamie's network of independent journalists would verify and circulate it. They would light the match, and the world would decide whether to watch the fire or put it out. But first, they had to get to DC. The journey begins again. They travel by night, moving through forests, ghost towns, and miles of backroads. Their caravan was disguised as a disaster relief team, a loophole provided by a former FEMA coordinator who'd quietly watched Elena's hearing from the background. They avoided major highways. Used hand-marked maps instead of GPS. And every night, they stopped at safe houses run by people who never asked for thanks. In one of those safe houses, a farm in rural Ohio, Liam woke in the middle of the night, coughing hard enough to draw blood. Elena sat with him, placing a warm towel against his chest. I'm not sure I'm going to see the end of this, he whispered. Don't say that. I'm glad I saw this much. I thought I'd die in a cage. Alone. You didn't. No. I died in pieces. But you kept finding them. She squeezed his hand. Then stay long enough to put them back together. He smiled faintly. Only because you're bossy. Meanwhile, deep underground at a black site, the man with the scar, the one who had handed Elena the flash drive, sat across from 2 men in suits. You gave her the rail files? One asked. She was going to find them anyway. Then we move forward. We neutralize? No, said the taller man. We redirect. Define that. We give the public a new villain. One worse than her. We let them run with the truth, while we rewrite the context. The scarred man tilted his head. That'll take coordination. It's already underway. Day 3. Arrival at the broadcast hub. An old university radio tower on the outskirts of Maryland had been reactivated by independent activists who believed in the old ways, frequency over fiber, signal over surveillance. They welcomed Elena and her team with open arms and guarded doors. The broadcast would go out in analog and digital simultaneously. It would be the single largest independent info dump since the start of the modern internet. Elena stood in the booth, adjusting the mic. Jamie gave her a nod. When you're ready. Liam stood beside her, leaning on a cane, holding her shoulder. Ren's voice crackled in. Broadcast clean. Uplinks all green. Hit it, nurse. She smiled softly. Then spoke. Elena's final broadcast. This is Elena Carter. You might know me as a nurse. Some know me as a whistleblower. Some call me a traitor. I'm not here to argue what I am. I'm here to show you what they tried to keep from you. She recounted the names. Diaz. Malik. The civilians caught in the crosshairs. The soldiers who stood for what was right and vanished for it. She read from the documents, orders for surveillance on schools, blacklists generated by healthcare purchases, predictive violence models tied to search histories. This is not war. This is control. She ended with a line that would be quoted for generations. They told me I wasn't qualified to speak, but I was qualified to watch people die. I say that makes me qualified enough. She clicked the uplink key. The files went live. Across the world. In cafes, train stations, barracks, and boardrooms, people watched. They downloaded. They shared. They questioned. Governments froze. Corporations flailed. But most importantly, people chose sides. Some defended the system. Others took to the streets. And somewhere, a spark caught flame. In the shadows, the men in suits reconvened. She did it, one muttered. The system's exposed. But she made a mistake. Which? She became the symbol. And symbols can be dismantled. What do? We don't kill her. No. We discredit her. Make her look unstable. Emotional. Attach foreign funding. Infiltrate the movement. They opened a folder labeled Operation White Noise. Back at the tower, Liam rested in a chair by the window, sunlight on his face. You did it, he said quietly. Elena sat beside him. No. We did it. Jamie entered with 2 coffees. There's reporters setting up outside. Do we give them something? Elena stood. We give them a name. And a promise. Part 10. What they couldn't silence. The morning was colder than it should have been. The sun shone, but the wind carried a chill that bit through Elena's coat as she stood on the rooftop of the old broadcast tower. Below, journalists gathered, not all friendly, not all safe. But all of them curious. All of them listening. Inside, Jamie prepared press packets with Wren's latest decrypted files, while Liam sat with his back against the far wall, wrapped in 2 blankets, color slowly returning to his face. He watched his sister as if memorizing her. I feel like this is the part in a movie where the main character gives the big speech, he said quietly. Elena turned. If this were a movie, you'd be in better shape, and I'd have a perfectly timed anthem behind me. He smiled. You ready? No. Good. That's how you know you are. 2 hours later, press room, tower basement. Elena stood at the front of the small converted room, flanked by Jamie and Liam. Microphones from a dozen different networks pointed toward her like weapons. The journalists waited, pens poised, cameras blinking. She took a breath. I wasn't supposed to be here, she began. I wasn't supposed to be anyone. I was just a nurse. She paused, letting that land. I joined the military to help people. To hold hands when machines failed. To be a bridge between the wounded and the dying. And in the end I became something else, because I had to. She didn't flinch. We exposed a system that rewrote what it meant to be safe. A program that preemptively profiled civilians. That justified killing people by predicting who they might become. She held up a photo. This is Nora Ellis. 10 years old. Labeled future instability risk. Killed in a drone strike designed by an algorithm. Another photo. Luis Ortega. An EMT. Flagged as ideologically misaligned because of his reading habits. He lost his job. He took his life. Her voice grew steady. Fierce. They called it acceptable loss. I call it murder with paperwork. The room was silent. I'm not here to beg for change. I'm here to demand it. Because when the ones who heal stay quiet, the ones who destroy get louder. She stepped back. And the room erupted, not in applause but in motion. Microphones forward. Hands raised. Questions shouted. But Elena didn't stay to answer. She walked out the back door. Because her part was done. And something darker was beginning. 2 days later, the smear campaign begins. News outlets began running strange stories. Not outright lies, more like subtle distortions. Nurse turned vigilante, Elena Carter's rise to radicalization. Who funds the Carter leaks? Analysts raise red flags. Sources claim Elena Carter consulted by foreign hackers. Even some supporters hesitated. Jamie slammed her laptop closed in frustration. They're rewriting you in real time. Elena barely reacted. I knew they would. Liam walked in, holding a printed copy of a leaked security memo. They named it Operation White Noise. Full media discreditation protocol. Psychological pressure campaigns. Shadow investigations. Jamie blinked. It's real? Elena nodded. They're scared. That night, a break-in. They came quietly. Four masked men breached the tower at 2:14 a.m. Wren's motion alarms tripped, but by then, they were inside. Liam heard them first, then shouted. Elena and Jamie armed themselves with basic defenses, flashbangs, spray, a single pistol. They were outnumbered. The men weren't here to kill. They were here to take. They grabbed Liam, dragged him screaming through the back corridor. Jamie took one down with a pike to the skull. Elena fought the second with every ounce of rage she'd suppressed for weeks. The last one escaped, with Liam. The message. An hour later, Elena received a video message. Liam. Bound. Bruised. Alive. A voice distorted through static. Your brother for the truth. Recant. Deny the documents. Call it all misinformation. Publicly. You have 48 hours. Flashback. Elena and Liam, childhood bedroom. They were hiding from a thunderstorm under the blanket fort between their beds. Liam had tears in his eyes. Elena held his hand. I'm scared, he whispered. Then I'll be brave for both of us, she said. Now, Elena packs a bag. Jamie grabbed her arm. You're not seriously going. I have to. They'll kill you. Or worse. They'll use you. Elena looked her in the eye. They already are. Then let me come. Elena hesitated. Then nodded. The drop site, a rail yard outside D.C. Midnight. Fog clung to the ground like spilled smoke. Elena approached alone, hands raised. 3 men waited. One held Liam. The others pointed guns. Do it, the leader said. Elena pulled out a phone. Held it up. Press play. A video of her speaking. But not a denial. A confirmation. I will not be silenced. I will not unsee what I've seen. I will not let my brother be a hostage for truth. She dropped the phone. It exploded, EMP pulse. Cameras fried. Communications down. Jamie emerged from the shadows. 2 gunshots. 1 man down. Liam broke free. Chaos. Elena tackled the last man. Then silence. It was over. 1 week later, hospital room. Liam lay in a clean bed. No restraints. No wires. Just peace. Elena sat beside him, her head on his shoulder. You came for me, he said. Always. Final scene, global address. Elena stood before a simple camera. No press. No stage. Just her. I never wanted to be a symbol, she said. I wanted to help people. But if that makes me dangerous, then maybe you should ask why truth scares you. She looked directly into the lens. I was just a nurse. And that was enough.